It holds up. I do have to say, the Colorado internet is pretty good so far. It's not bad. A little tired, though. Okay. Whoa. All right.
You spoke too soon.
Yeah. Well, no. It's not that. It's the friggin' using the magic mouse inside a spreadsheet in Google can be a little bit tricky sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
You do one false, like...
Suddenly everything is blank. And you're like,
exactly.
What happened?
What the hell? All right, so we're on, what are we on, December 12th? 3:43, that's all correct. Drill press.
Voluntary Zoom.
Our questions are there. There's the Patreon people. 3, what's on the bench. You got 1, what's new. And then some kickback. Voicemail. All right, I think we're good.
Cool.
Let's do this, suckers. Shut up, Matt. No giggling.
Yeah.
Fire the other Matt because of the giggling.
Is that what happened?
Yes, it's enough.
The dirty secret?
Yes, exactly.
Welcome to Wood Talk, for woodworkers by woodworkers. Now here are 3 guys who, if combined, would make one hell of a woodworker. Mark, Matt, and Shannon.
All right, it's Wood Talk number 343 for December 12, 2016. When you're podcasting, it's not a great time to drop a hot one, if you know what I'm saying, because you kind of have to you have to sit in it, and it's totally gross, and I shouldn't even be talking about it, but it's really bad right now. Hold on.
You're just fishing for show titles now.
I'm just killing time. We don't have that much to talk about.
Mark, drop the hot one.
That was bad. Okay, so on today's show, we're talking about router bit buying strategy, lathe tool recommendations, jointer planes, and where to put the drill press. And we'd also like to thank some folks who helped us out with contributions over at Patreon. That's patreon.com/woodtalk. A few also on PayPal. So Daniel McGarity Photography. That's not his last name. I think it's a business name. Scott Basin. And here's some folks from Patreon. Jason Christensen, Connor McClure, Hunter Locke, Robert Crandall, Michael Ebner, Jim Meeks, Scott Griffith, Aaron Tate, Chris Tidwell, Patrick O'Malley, Donovan Dickerson, Paul Gottlieb, Kenneth Reisman, and Ian Hepburn. Thank you very much, folks. We really appreciate the support. And if you help us out over there on Patreon, you get some cool little kickbacks there with the various different levels, stickers and T-shirts and fun stuff like that. And you get your name read at the top of the show. And you get to go to sleep at night knowing that you helped the 3 of us keep this little adventure of ours going on and into the future.
It's the one way to get kickback. It's the one way to guarantee your kickback won't get kickback.
That's true. That is very true. Doesn't happen many times in the shop, but it can happen here on the show. All right, so let's move into what is on the bench. For me, I was actually a little bit slowed down this week because I had one of the worst injuries I've had, like just accidental, stupid thing happening type injury that I've had in a long time. And it's way worse than any injury I've ever had in the shop. And this one was acquired by moving furniture with my mother.
Nice.
Yeah, so
that's a mistake.
It was a big mistake, and I wasn't expecting to have to wear steel toe boots for the activity, so I had my running shoes on, and I'm moving a leather recliner, and I'm pulling. Didn't expect my mom was going to jump in and throw some grandma He-Man strength into it and push the thing toward me as I was pulling, and my toe was sitting like kind of partially pointed up in my sneaker, and it's just got that breathable mesh on the top. So the metal frame of the recliner slammed into my toe. And the crazy thing, I'm just like, it took me out for a couple seconds, and I'm like, oh, okay, I need to sit down. But it was really just a bad stubbed toe. And I reached my hand down, and I thought, like, is this a knot in the fabric of my sock? Because I felt this hard thing on top of my toe. I thought, like, maybe it's fabric. And I'm like, I'm not sure I want to look at this. And I pull my sock off.
One of those. Oh.
And for those who don't follow me on Facebook and didn't see the image that I posted because,
I did, but I avoided it because I didn't want to.
It's not a good thing to see. It's pretty gross. That's why I didn't even post it immediately. I put it in the comment of the post just in case anyone doesn't want to see it. They don't have to. And man, my toenail folded over on itself. So imagine the front half of your toenail flipping up and taking a fold back. And I'm just looking at it going, what do I do about this? Like, that's new. And I'll tell you what, it did not hurt as much as I would. Like when you look at a picture of that, it looks way more painful than it was. It really just hurt like a badly stubbed toe, and now it's just super sensitive. And I got to wear a sandal and a sock on my one foot, which is a great
It's
fashion
funny.
statement.
Seeing you swinging on the swings with a shoe and a sandal.
Yeah, I'm out there with Mateo. We're at the park, just like
Funny
dads
is
do.
I didn't see your post about your toe until after I saw that.
You just thought that I'm like, this is how Mark does things.
It's like Denver's really getting to him.
I was gonna say, man, you really have gone native.
Yeah, well, I've got one foot in Denver at this point, the sandaled one. So yeah, that was a real trip. So here's the thing: lesson learned. In case you guys ever confront a situation like this, I was really nervous about the toenail kind of sticking up, right? So I'm like, well, I should probably trim what's hanging there. And this way, who knows what's going to happen to it, but I should at least get some of the excess off. So I did, but then I got to a point where the trimming was really hurting because there were still nerve endings in the underside of the nail. So I just left it there, right? And I bandaged it up, cleaned it up, and went to bed. The next morning, my toenail had folded down by itself, and it completely returned to its normal position. So I cut a little too much off that night. I should have just left it alone. If I had left it alone, it would have folded back and I would have had that little bit of extra protection. Now, granted, I probably would have I'm still going to probably lose my toenail, but it's a slower process as it heals, and I've got toenail there to protect the real tender bits underneath. So, word of warning, you ever rip that off or do something with your nail and there's still nail there, just leave it because it's probably going to fold back down. So, that was fun. Aside from that disgustingness, I did start to delve into the arcade plan. And this is, I mentioned this before, it's an Instructables plan, and I spent most of the day on this. And the problem is, number one, it's in metric. So I feel your pain, Euro people, all you folks who complain when we produce imperial plans. I feel your pain there. But inaccuracies is a major problem. There are places where things should be in centimeters, and they're listed as millimeters, but there's no way that part can be that small. It has to be centimeters. And I'm trying to make sense of someone else's plans. And I'm like, you know what? I guess just trying to produce the best set of plans for people possible, and you guys do this when you produce some kind of plan that you're distributing, you really set the bar pretty high, for yourself in terms of quality and fact checking and typos and things like that. It's a great plan, but it's crap. I mean, it's like I'm glad the guy did
Great,
it.
but it's crap.
I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to be nice here. But the plan is just garbage because it's and it's years old and no one went back to fix it. So you just kind of have to figure it out. So meanwhile, here I am this was going to be such a super easy project. But the reality is I'm redrawing the entire thing in SketchUp, trying to make sure the numbers and the angles all work out. And I just this is no longer an easy project. So here we go. So now I got to redesign this thing from the ground up, just using, some of what I'm getting from that plan as the basis for it. But just a reminder of how so many things that are out there in terms of plans that you can get online could very well be absolute garbage, and you just don't know till you dive in. So kind of a bummer.
Good to
but
know.
Yeah, not all Instructables are created equal, as they say. But again, the great project. The guy did a really good job. And if I was building one for myself, I can kind of go in and just relatively build the parts out, and it doesn't matter if it's slightly off. But if I'm doing it on the show, I want it to meet a certain standard, and I want people to be able to ask questions and get answers. And for that, I need to actually have these numbers make sense. So kind of a pain in the butt, but moving forward. So hopefully this week, maybe tomorrow, I'll actually cut some wood in the garage, which will be kind of cool.
That'd be weird. How long has it been?
Few weeks. Well, I mean...
Well,
maybe
Less than it's been for you, Matt.
That's kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah. So tell us, what's the latest? Are we any
Matt
closer?
Cremona, the metal worker.
I am almost done, I think.
Yay! I believe it when I see it.
I got a few emails and comments this last week saying that you guys we should talk about the sawmill more because it's interesting.
Is it though? Is it though?
I don't know. That's what people say. A few people told me.
It is interesting.
No one said keep doing nothing and not talking about it, but I had people tell me to start talking about it. So, which direction do we go with this?
It's been a couple of weeks since your last update, so maybe give us the update, and we'll talk about it again in 3 weeks.
Let's assume that people are not going and watching your videos where you talk about the bandsaw mill, because you feel like you talk about it a lot on your own channel, but not everybody listens to Wood Talk, watches the Matt Cremona show on YouTube.
Say it isn't so.
I had a couple people last week leave me comments saying, "Hey, I've listened to you on Wood Talk for the last year. I finally came over to check out what you're doing over here.
Yeah.
So
that happens a lot to me.
It took a while to convince him.
Hearing me every week isn't enough, or it is plenty enough, I guess. Why do more?
That's enough. We don't need any more of this guy.
Oh, so I am really, really stinking close now. I just finished up the tensioning mechanism today, and I have a little bit of welding to do on the guards and on the one more log clamp, and then I'm done. Or I'm done to the point where I can actually put a blade on there, get the wheels aligned, and try and make a cut with it, which would be, I just hope it cuts. You know what, at this point, just go through the log, make something cut. That's all I care about.
Nice.
More importantly, go through the log and be faster than your Alaskan mill.
Oh, I don't.
Could you imagine after all of this, it was actually easier to just stay with the chainsaw mill that you had?
That would suck.
I don't know how that would be even possible, but you know what? Crazier things have happened so far in this ridiculous project.
Nice. So, I mean, from here on out, you're going to use this thing, and you're going to get feedback like, well, it'd be great if I had one of those, I could do that too. You know,
Totally can.
and you'll be like, you know what? You're right. You could.
Here's the plans, and here's the videos.
That's true.
Enjoy.
It ain't like you just, went out and bought this thing. You built the damn thing yourself. So, there's major cred for something like that.
Yeah, it's a heck of an experience. I didn't know anything about any of the stuff going into it, and it's been an incredible learning experience, and more than anything, a good test of patience.
Yeah.
Which everyone tells me I have a lot of patience, so maybe that's the limiting factor for most people with this thing is, do you have enough patience to build this?
Yep. Well, very good, man.
Like, I guess the question is, once this project is behind you, are you anxious to get back into the shop and work wood, or are you just like anxious to start sawing up logs? Like, are you just going to play with the new toy for the next 6 months sawing up logs, and then maybe you'll build something later?
I got to get in the shop and get some work done in there.
He's got a guild video to start editing.
That's where I'm at right now. Is I start editing his guild video and finish. I have to finish the benches for that project as well still.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a few things left to do there, but at least with the benches, that's pretty quick since it's not. We already talked about all of the like construction details of building those things, and we built a table, so it's going to be a faster video, I guess. Luckily for me, so. That one's going to be kind of nice because I can just kind of get out there in the shop, build them, kind of knock them out, and just kind of take the viewer along for the ride. Since the construction techniques are exactly the same as the table. It's like basically building mini tables.
It's a smaller scale.
But, yeah.
Cool. Sounds good.
Well, what I want to know is the last step of your bandsaw mill, is that to install a permanent camera? Since, I mean, let's face it, you're a content creator. You can't go to all this building this bandsaw mill without cool camera angles. Come on.
Well, I'll probably put some mounts somewhere.
As I say, you might not want to keep the camera out there forever.
See, the problem I'm having right now is I'm struggling with the fact that it's crazy cold here, and how much time do I want to spend outside actually using this thing? And at the same time, I want to get these logs out of my driveway. I want to get them cut up. I want to use them. I also want to be inside. So I think I might pace myself with the sawing just to not freeze to death and go from there, but we'll see.
Cool.
Yeah, wait until after the solstice when at least you can say, well, the day's a little bit longer now. It's a little bit warmer today.
Not really.
Yeah, not at all, but
it doesn't bottom out until late January here.
Yeesh. Sounds fun. All right, Shannon, what do you got going
on? I think I mentioned last week that I was going to get started on making moldings for my blanket chest, and I just reminded again of how I think it's probably my favorite thing of hand tool woodworking, just woodworking in general.
Really?
Kind of making the moldings, whether you do it with, hand tool power, whatever, just that kind of decorative element that you add to the project. When you get to that point where kind of all of the construction is really done and you're just making it pretty,
Yeah.
And of course, hand sticking moldings has always been fun for me because it's kind of like, I'm like Bob Ross in there, making pretty little coves and pretty little beads, happy little beads and happy little coves, because it's a very almost freehand type process, and you really can kind of create the profile exactly how you want it. You can lean the plane over and make it a little bit more relaxed profile. You can make that cove a little bit steeper. You can play with the location of the fillets and really just with a couple of plane passes, change the whole look of that profile and really kind of make it your own. And I just have so much fun with it. And it's a very, I don't know, romantic kind of part of woodworking where there's nothing, there's really not a lot of stress involved. It's just kind of walking down the bench and making passes with the rabbet planes. And it's all very light work. There's no heavy duty scrub plane work or pulling off huge shavings. It's all whisper thin, fine shavings. And it's just, I don't know, it's just a lot of fun. I'm getting waxing poetic here, but the whole thing is very meditative for me. So I was digging it. I spent my weekend making molding. Had a lot of fun with it.
I was digging it.
But I was just going to say, what's funny about this is I don't know if it's the power tool side of things that influences me or simply like a furniture style difference, but that is something I do not look forward to. And part of it, I don't like moldings in general. Like anything, if you just think more of a modern aesthetic, there's usually not much in the way of complex moldings, roundovers, chamfers,
bevels.
And really, really simple stuff, right? So the aesthetic isn't there. So my personal taste doesn't lean toward that. But also, there isn't a whole lot of pleasure to be gained by using a router bit and just running through a piece of trim. There's nothing poetic or fun or relaxing about it. It's just a power tool operation. So I think if you combine those two aspects together is the reason why I really don't care for that at all, which is kind of funny. It's like the opposite.
Well, I can definitely see that because I can remember I never liked using the router. And if I did, I definitely didn't like, I much preferred it in a table. I felt like I had a lot more control that way. Yeah. But there's something about having total control over the profile you create rather than whatever that carbide router bit, is, or high-speed steel router bit, whatever, is creating for you. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you can make that profile your own and change it and relax it and make it more upright, add a bead on it, put a bead on it. I don't know. There's just something very, very cool about it. And, I think there's a lot of folks that really kind of go overboard on the hollows and rounds thing. I got to have this full set, it's like, well, unless you're actually like exactly reproducing historical forms, like a pair of hollows and rounds, like a number 6 or maybe a number 8 is really all you need. And you can make, well, I had one of those like cheapo kits of router bits. You remember like get it on eBay for $19.99 and 54 profiles, and they're like the lowest quality router bits ever. But you could recreate every profile in that kit with a pair of number 6 hollows and rounds, and then some, and that I think is the element of it. And part of it is like I'll lay something out and then I'll be midway through it and go, wouldn't it be cooler if this angle was a little bit different here, and you just change the angle of the plane a little bit and you get a different look, a different feel to it. That to me it's like sculpting, more than machining or whatever. And to me, that's what just is really, really fun about it.
Yeah. Now, see, you when you frame it that way, I get it, because I get the same thing when I'm doing shaping, a certain type of power carving, or even, using hand tools to do it, and rasps and things like that. So I get it from that vantage point.
But you bring up a really good point about the style. I mean, your style is not, OGs and classical profiles and stuff like that. Maybe a bead here and there.
Except for when people call me the OG. You know what I'm saying?
Oh boy.
Come on.
Oh boy.
Matt gets it. He's young. Don't do that.
Nope.
Okay. Well, very good.
Long story short, I was sticking moldings.
Sticking it to the man. All right. Let's get into what's new. Shannon, you got one here?
Sure. This is something that just popped up on my main page of YouTube, so I'm sure it's probably been seen by a couple million people. But I've seen a lot of it's a video on making a wooden ring. This guy specifically inlays some brass into it. I've seen quite a few videos of making rings. In fact, Matt Vanderlist was probably the first one that I saw when he did it. But there's something about this. I don't know this guy's channel. Happy Adam is the channel name. I've never seen any of his stuff before, so I don't know if he's like a woodworker or generic maker or just somebody that found a cool process. But what's really interesting about it is exactly what I did not expect. Like when I looked at it thinking, oh, well, this is how he, you formulate in your mind kind of how he did it. And he totally did the opposite way. And it's so much simpler than my typical overbuild it, over-engineer, overthink it woodworker mind came up with. Yeah. So I really should check into this to find out what his background is. Is he actually a woodworker or not? Because he just makes this whole process using veneer and like soaking the veneer and then pre-rolling it and then wrapping it around a socket wrench, dousing it in CA glue, and bam, he's got a bent laminated veneered ring. And even his inlay process is just using an X-Acto knife, and he uses really thin brass so that it kind of bends and forms into the ring shape. And the finished product is really cool looking. Very professional, very, what's the backhanded insult? It looks like you could have gotten it at a store.
It looks better than store-bought.
Like store-bought.
It was just one of those things where I was pleasantly surprised at just how simple the process was. There really were no, quote, woodworking tools. It was something you literally go buy a socket wrench, not even a socket wrench, the socket. You don't even need the wrench. Just buy a socket, and an X-Acto knife and some veneer, and you can make all these rings, and they look really, really cool. So kudos to Happy Adam for making me realize I way overcomplicate stuff.
That is the way of the woodworker. That's just the way it is.
Most definitely.
All right, let's get into our kickback. Got a few things here. In fact, we've got 2 voicemail kickbacks that we will start with. First one is from Brad.
Hi, guys. This is Brandon from Ontario, Canada. Just want to do a kickback and just to let me humor the whole cutting board. You guys have had a few calls for cutting board issues. And I've been making cutting boards for a long time, and great cutting boards. And there's a lot of people that are worried about finish and bacteria and whatnot. I gotta say, the only finish you'll ever need is just regular mineral oil. And any mineral oil that you'll probably buy at retail from a drugstore is going to be food grade. That stuff's used for lactase, it's used for all kinds of different bodily features, but it's in general the safest thing you can put on there. All these varnishes and finishes is just way overkill. You had a caller that originally said that they were expecting water to bead on an N-grade cutting board. And if you got water beading on an N-grade cutting board, Mark was right, you've got plastic. Because it's an N-grain, it's going to shed water really, really quickly. There's been studies done. Even if you get blood or anything down there for meat, bacteria just doesn't survive in the N-grade. Butcher blocks have been made for decades, back 50, 60, 70 years ago they were doing it. They didn't even use finish at that point. I wouldn't say you have any kind of problem just leaving it with mineral oil. I'd do it just because it makes a nice sheen on there. If anything, I'd put a 1 part oil, 3 parts beeswax melted in a pot, and I pour it in little cups, and I can hand it out, and you literally just rub that on the surface. That's all that's ever needed. Hands down, that's the best thing you can do. If you watch MTM Wood, the guy out in Russia, he does a fantastic job with all his cutting boards, and that's all he does, but I'm not basing it on what he does. This is what I've done in the research that I've gone through. Thanks, guys. Love the show. Take care.
There you go. Good perspectives on cutting board and food safety. Thanks for that, Brad.
One of the things that I've always liked about the mineral oil finish is it puts the upkeep firmly into the hands of the recipient of it. So, like, if anything goes wrong, it's like, well, hey, all you got to do is wipe down with mineral oil. And he's right. It looks great after it's been wiped down with mineral oil. So there's all manner of sins that you could just say, well, hey, I told you when I sold it to you or gave it to you that you just have to upkeep it, with mineral oil. Right. And looks great after mineral oil. So there you go.
Yep. Nothing wrong with that. Cool. All right, let's get into the next one here from Rick.
Hey guys, love the show. This is Rick from Atlanta. Listened to at least 300 hours, which is about 12 and a half days of my life, which is awesome that you've been able to keep my attention.
Jeez.
Hey, for the guy that called in for the basement shop and was looking for a heat source, I'm in Atlanta, a little bit warmer, but it still gets cold in the winter. And what I do is I just have those halogen lights. In the summertime, I can't use them, but in the wintertime, I have one of those 250-watt lights, spotlights, the work lights. You can definitely buy 2 or 3. Not only do you get the heat from it, but you also get more light, which is awesome. So hope that helps. That is more than enough to heat up my shop. So I'm sure it'll help too. Thanks, guys.
Geez, lights, huh? So I'd be curious what his lighting situation is, that he's can tolerate the extra light in the space, but half of the year doesn't have that light in the space. It's kind of interesting. Yeah. But yeah, those halogens can be, man, they can get seriously hot.
Don't touch them.
Yeah, don't put your tongue on it. That'd be bad. And that's actually it for the kickback voicemail. So you guys want to take these last 2 kickbacks?
Sure. Why not? Why not indeed? This one comes from Kevin. He says, also an unconditioned basement woodworker, so I should probably contribute a possible solution. I've insulated my basement, but there's no heat source down there yet. I do exactly what Shannon said and use a space heater to get it up to the 60-degree range. To overcome fume issues, I have a large squirrel cage type fan that the previous homeowner had mounted in a window. This does cool it down, but it helps keep the fumes from being pulled out into the house. Basically, it has enough pull to overcome the stack effect that pulls the air up into your house under normal conditions. For a belt and suspenders approach, make sure all exhaust fans in the living space are off when you apply a finish. Those would be bath fans, kitchen hood fans, and your dryer. Those will act to pull air up from the basement. Hope this helps. It's a very good point. The dryer gets me every time because the laundry room is right next to my shop.
Oh, man.
And inevitably, not only does it spread it into the house, but into the clothes that run the dryer.
Oh, that's got to make the family happy.
Yeah.
Nice.
Not good.
This next one is from Andrew. It says, love the off-topic weekend shows. It's great hearing about woodworking, but sometimes it's nice to learn about something new from an unfamiliar voice or from a familiar voice. Whatever.
It's all good.
At least it's shorter this week. Yeah. All your talk about business really reminds me why I love my 8 to 5. Owning my own business is not what I want to do. I just like to work dealing with all it. I like to just work dealing with all the other stuff that does not sound fun. So I guess your off-topic show isn't terribly off-topic.
Well, there you go. That's one of those things. Do you live to work or do you work to live? You know, and I think there is merit to going to work and coming home and shutting that crap off, you know, and being able to just do your own thing on the nights and weekends.
There's something to be said about being able to punch out.
Yes.
My problem is I haven't had a job that I'm able to punch out from in years.
Yeah,
decades,
that'll be a problem.
Yeah, the internet and email and like BlackBerry's going back a bit. Well, BlackBerry's still out there, but that type of thing basically eliminated 9 to 5. You know,
I bet that's happened for a lot of people, though. You know, just in general, it's too easy to be, you know, for your boss to keep in touch with you and to do. Go, let me hop online real quick, do this, answer a couple emails. It's definitely got to be a problem for everybody at this point. Right, got a little voicemail. This one actually is a question, not a kickback. So this is from Jared. Question about drill presses.
Hi guys, this is Jared from Pennsylvania. I know you just said that. I just bought a drill press and I had a question for you guys. I thought maybe since Mark's moving his shop, he might be familiar with the situation. So the drill press I bought is way too big for the shop I have. So my plan is to put it in the corner since that seems like it would take the least amount of space. So I wanted to know, how often do you guys find yourself in a situation where you have a piece of work that is sticking far off to the left or the right of the drill press table to where that would cause an issue being in a corner? I don't think it's going to fit any other way, so I'm hoping you guys say never. That's my question, and I just wanted to let you know that I've been practicing really hard on an impression, and I think you're going to be really impressed with it. So here goes. It's an impression of a leaky air hose in Matt's shop. Ready? Sell out.
Okay. I had to listen to that a couple times to get what he was doing, and I think some of this comes down to like Skype, the recording sometimes may not pick up certain sounds. Like it's got really aggressive noise cancellation. So
sibilance.
Yeah, so I think what he did was sell out. So I just wish we could have heard it a little bit better because that's pretty genius. So you better go fix that leaky air hose, Matt. It's calling you out.
Yeah.
It is calling you out,
man. It's
man.
a Triton. Make sure it's...
Yeah, a Triton air hose. Sell out. That is awesome. Well, thanks for that.
If it were a Triton air hose, it wouldn't be leaking.
Yeah. It would definitely not leak.
That's right. Sure. Of course not. They never do. So thank you for that, Jared. And in answer to your question, at least in my shop, I do often confront situations where if the drill press were in a corner, it would be problematic for me. And I think the drill press... I think more than any other tool, maybe like a 14-inch bandsaw, but the drill press is right up there in the top, 2 or 3 tools that seem like they really want to be in a corner. Like it's so convenient to put it there, but you will run into a problem at some point. So my suggestion would be to get that thing on a mobile base. I mean, I know they're really tall and a little top heavy, so that could be a little bit scary, but I know there are bases out there that can kind of help compensate for that and make it a little bit safer. But if you could pull it in and out of that corner, you could buy yourself some extra space, keep it pushed in when you don't need it, pull it out when you do. So do you guys often have issues with, would you think he's going to confront this pretty quickly? Work pieces that are too long for that thing to be in the corner?
Depends what he makes. Like, for me, to be honest, I don't really do a whole lot of long work pieces where I have stuff hanging way off the drill press.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really pretty rare that I ever have to worry about that. But yeah, if you put it on a mobile base, you can just you can even just rotate it one way or the other, depending which way the work is sticking out of the drill press. So there's some clearance there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I think it comes down to the instances of needing it are so low that even if it's not on a mobile base and you just need to kind of like
shimmy it,
tip walk it into position, to take care of that 2%, maybe 5% of the time situation. The rest of the time, you're right. It's kind of meant to be in the corner,
Yeah.
So just stick it there, and then when that time comes up, just move it.
Well,
Yep.
and now sorry, I know you're done talking.
That's right. I didn't drink, did I?
Drink.
Crap. Real quick though, think about it this way too: is you're drilling in a single point, so you can, if you have a workpiece that's to be sticking off, you can always put it like perpendicular and like into the corner. If you need it, you can have it stick out the backside.
Yeah.
So you have a little more space that way too, maybe.
That's true.
Sure.
Very true.
A lot of options.
That's a fancy solution there, Matt.
Sure.
You like that?
Attaboy.
Think outside the box.
Why you show us in the Wood Talk every week.
Yep. That's what happens when you make a bandsaw mill
tip.
for 6 months. You start to get clever thinking about other things.
See, I've been using a drill press a lot more in the last, 4 months than I ever have in my entire life.
There you go.
And at no point in my woodworking career have I ever wanted a larger drill press or a more capable drill press until I started this project. So there's that.
Yeah. And you'll probably, after this is done, never confront that situation again.
Right. I don't know. I probably will, with my luck, but not anywhere near the scale. But I probably will. So I'm actually considering a new drill press for real.
Nice. Does Triton make one?
Nope.
Gonna have to go outside the family.
I know. My painted orange or something.
You better submit that permission request. Get it in there. All right, let's move into our email here. Got one from Greg. He's got a question about router bits. He said, when I first got into woodworking a few years ago, I immediately heard the advice to use only premium table saw blades. I followed this advice and never regretted it. However, I've been using less expensive router bits and have been getting what I thought were decent results. Recently, I decided to splurge on a white side round over bit, and the first time I used the thing, it was like the heavens opened up. Easier cutting, much less chip out, and overall vastly superior cut quality. I guess this isn't a big surprise, and now I want to replace all my bargain bits, but I'm curious if you guys find any use for discount quality router bits. Maybe specialty bits you might only use once for a specific project, or do you go with premium bits exclusively? Shannon, not sure if there's any hand tool parallel here. Feel free to chime in about the discount router plain blades, if such a thing exists. Nice. All right. So with router bits, I actually am a big proponent of buying those big multi-sets so you just have them. It's like having, a socket wrench kit or something, with like every possible size you could ever need. And then having a couple of the sizes you need all the time that are made at a higher quality. So I kind of do the same thing with router bits. Your roundovers, your chamfers, your straight bits, your flush trim bits, these are all the places that you're going to use those like not every project, but nearly every project. So why not spend a little bit more money on those? But like an odd size core box bit or a weird OG profile for weird people who use those. You know what I'm talking about. Like all those weird little profiles that maybe someday you'll need, but you're not sure. Those are the ones that I don't mind having a lower quality bit. And if my, preferences ever change and I start to use it enough to dull it or need better results out of it, then I go and buy that premium bit. But there is no way I'm going to go out and buy every bit that I have as a premium bit. It's only for the absolute most important things. And I keep the bargain bits, for just that general it's like having a big, a chest of tools to tackle any particular problem. If I need to solve a problem, I go and open this big thing and I'm like, all right, I know one of these is going to do the trick for me here, and I've got it there, and it's a fairly cheap bit. So it's at least the way I look at it.
Couldn't agree more.
Yay!
Yeah, I can remember like opening up that little case that had all the discount router bits in it, and there'd be like 2 in there that had a little bit of pitch buildup on it, and everything else was like sparkly new.
Yep.
Like they never got used.
Yeah.
But it would be like, maybe once. Okay, I'm going to use that particular, because usually they have like 6 different sizes of OG bits.
Yep, exactly.
It's 1/4 inch and 3/8 and 1/2 inch, and it's like, how often do you use those? Use it once, and I'm certainly not going to pay. I don't know the price difference when you break down, divide that $25 kit by 30 bits compared to the white side. You could buy not very many white side bits.
1 bit for $30.
Yeah.
You're not going to get very far with that.
For me, I'll throw in one little thing too, is I weight the consideration of how difficult it is to clean up that profile if it needs it. So if I am doing going back to like the molding discussion, if I'm doing some piece of molding, and the profile will be hard to like clean up with sandpaper or whatever, because those discount bits like to burn, and maybe they'll chip out a little bit. So depending on how much of a pain in the butt it is to clean up that profile, that might weight me towards buying a more expensive bit, just because I know it's going to be flawless off the bit.
Yeah, it's going to be more efficient for you in the long run. Cool.
I don't think there is a hand tool amalgam.
No.
I can't really think of it.
Well, it isn't like you've got so many manufacturers making these
and
blades.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, like if they're going to make them, they're going to make them pretty good quality.
Yeah, very true.
Cool. You're up, Matt.
You good?
Yeah, wake up.
I'm waiting for that drink.
Stop taking your nap. I have nothing to drink. My cup is empty.
Here, I'll take.
Sorry.
I'll take
You got to pace yourself, Mark. Come on.
Here, I'll pretend.
Here you go, Pavlov. Have a drink.
Yeah, someone's drinking. That's good enough.
Oh, why is it we all laughing every single time I gotta read something I didn't write?
You just laugh a lot. That's the problem. Like a little girl.
Not a problem. It's part of the brand.
Oh, I see. Go. Okay. He's brand. Yep. It's all about branding.
Brand.
Wow. I underestimated that. Well done.
All right. This one is from Andrew. He says, I recently acquired a lathe for free. Fall cleanup is awesome that way sometimes. I got a couple of carbide tip chisels for Christmas, but I'm already finding that they are rather limiting, and I want to get high-speed steel tools. What is Mark doing?
Oh, sorry. I'm just entertaining myself with a
I was reading
little adapter.
In my eye. I see Mark waving through the air.
I'm throwing something and catching it.
Doing something different.
Yeah.
He's very bored by what you're saying.
And I'm entertaining myself. People listening have no idea what we're talking about, so let's not talk about it.
See, we didn't have this problem before we were broadcasting this live.
That's right. It's all good. Go ahead. Don't mind me.
I'll put my hand over your picture. All right.
There you go.
I don't know where I was now. He wants to get some high-speed steel tools. I'm really enjoying the work. In particular, I'm finding the carbide is getting blunt, and the replacement tips aren't cheap. I want to get a power sharpener anyway. I'm thinking of the Workshop Sharp 3000. Do you have any advice for what chisels I should be looking at next? I enjoy making bowls, but I'd like to make some pens. First off, I'll say that you can sharpen those carbide inserts on a diamond plate. Pretty easy to do. You can do the same thing with the carbide marking gauge things too. You just put the face down onto the stone and just kind of rub it around. That'll get you some sharpness there. I do that on my Easy Wood Tools, the one I have. I've done that on that one tip a lot. But I haven't used it very much, so it doesn't really matter. For me, I don't have any fancy, I'll air quote, fancy high-speed steel tools. I have the budget ones, or whatever you want to call them. They're all like rebranded. Everyone has this. They're exactly the same thing. They're the steel tool with the same turn handle, the ash handle with the little grooves in it, like the little rings in it. And I've been using those exclusively for all my turning, because I don't really care for the carbide stuff, really. So I don't know what I'm missing if the fantastically expensive, like $150 bowl gouges are better than this $30 one that I have, that I've actually sharpened so many times it's getting really short. But once you have a good sharpening system, and it sounds like I've never done any sharpening on the Workshop 3000 or have you guys seen lathe tools being done on that?
I was gonna say, can you sharpen lathe tools on a Workshop?
I don't know.
I had one like
good
8
question.
years ago. And I know they've made a lot of changes to it, but you definitely would not sharpen lathe tools on that thing. Well, maybe they have an attachment now.
Either way, if you have a good sharpening system, and the other thing too with the high-speed steel tools, it kind of goes back to the router bit things, like how many tools do you need or which tools are you going to use the most? And then if you really want to splurge and get like a nice bowl gouge, for instance, then you can do that. For me, when I'm doing bowl turning, I literally use 2 tools. I use a bowl gouge and I use a skew to make the tenon on the bottom of the bowl or the recess or whatever for the chuck to grab. The entirety of the rest of the turning is all with the bowl gouge, so I don't really need to like have a spindle gouge or whatever else comes in that kit, parting tool, etc. But if you have them in that one kit, it's nice to have, and you can kind of decide which ones are the best for you or what you want to do with your turning. I don't know. And
just FYI, I did find at least a video referencing, a couple videos referencing work sharp with a gouge jig. So it's like a toolbar attachment that they use that you can use with the work sharp.
I'm looking at looking at one of them right now. We were thinking the same thing.
So it looks like it is possible.
Right. I knew they had to have something there. I think Matt's actually onto something. It comes down to your sharpening system. I think I could be wrong, but I think with the more kind of niche you get in woodworking, you'll find like the really, really good dedicated turners. They find better use for the higher quality tools, and it may be the steel, cryogenically treated edges, or sometimes it's just that there's a profile already ground onto it or something like that. You need a longer one for better leverage, but I think when you're more a beginning turner or a casual turner, as long as you can sharpen it well, you may have to sharpen a cheaper tool more often, but if your sharpening system is solid, that's fine. Just sharpen it more often.
Well, let's be honest, sharpening like a lathe tool is nothing like sharpening a chisel, because like you go like right off the grinder, back to the work. You wouldn't do that with a chisel.
No, you could.
Again, I mean, most people wouldn't, I guess.
But you might not be so happy with it.
Yeah. But, it's like the same thing, just our last question. The difference between sharpening like a router bit and a router plane blade. I realize they're 2 entirely different tools, but, your router bits don't shave hair off your arm. At least mine never did, but your plane blades and chisels, it's an RPM thing. It's a horsepower, not RPM. When the lathe is spinning at you at a high RPM, and you can get away with a slightly duller chisel. Whereas, with my lathe moving at much slower speed, I have to have razor sharp chisels. That's the biggest difference I found between a foot powered lathe and an electric lathe is your chisels. I can't go right off the grinder. I am honing them and taking them up to a higher, same way I would sharpen, a chisel or a plane blade.
Right.
It's the biggest difference there because there's not that high RPM and high torque horsepower behind it.
Right. Cool.
This next one comes from Wade off of our Patreon page. So thank you, Wade. Let's see where to go. Here it is. It says, I have a nice selection of Lie-Nielsen planes, and I want to add a joiner plane. I'm debating between the number 7 and the low angle number 7.5. I have the number 164 and number 62, and I love using them, but I can't decide between the 2 options. I never used either one. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these options. Now, I have a confession to make. I think I've confessed this on the show before. I am terrible when it comes to numbers on these planes. When we're talking the bench planes, like 1 through 7.
I give you crap for it.
Yeah, well, it's just I've never paid attention. I know I actually had to look it up.
Yeah, I was going to say there's nothing a quick Google can't fix.
Right, yeah, and I might even get these mixed up now. The 164 I think is the low angle smoother. Maybe it's a low angle jack, and the 62 is whatever the other one is, low angle jack. Low angle smoother. Yeah. The 62 is a low angle jack. The 164 is a low angle smoother. I know them as smoothing planes, jack planes, fore planes, joiner planes, etc. And I've never really paid that much attention. Maybe it's because I have a lot of new tools too, and who knows. But so the question comes down to, he wants to add a joiner plane, and he's wondering if he should get a low angle one. Essentially, he likes using a low angle jack and a low angle smoother. So in a lot of respects, I say, why fight it and go with what you know? There's a lot of different camps on the low angle and bevel up and bevel down, and why you use one over the other. I think, frankly, it comes down to what you like using. I will add a little wrinkle to this when you're talking about the joiner plane. I find that, especially when you're jointing on an edge, I find that the low angle profile, kind of the lower center of gravity of the low angle joiner plane, is actually easier to feel and maintain square on an edge. It's very much the opposite of like a back saw. I find that the taller the back saw is, the easier it is to get a square cut. With a joiner plane, it's just the opposite. That lower kind of squatter center of gravity really allows me to keep it square to the edge a lot easier. So there could be that. I mean, it's not going to make a bit of difference if you're joining a face. You're not worrying about the square aspect of it. I also find that it's a little bit more visible. It's a wide open mouth. You can see the shape, the location of the shaving a lot more than you can with the bevel down. But other than that, it's kind of a wash as to which one's better than the other. So I say, if you already like using your bevel up low angle planes, go with that. Go with what you know.
As a bit of a counterpoint to that, and I have many fewer hours behind a plane than you do, Shannon. But I've found for myself, I actually enjoy the heft of something like that when you're talking about in particular, a number 7, a very large bodied plane. I feel like if it's too light, I don't get as good of a result, compared to when it's, a little bit more beefy and actually physically more weight on the work, especially on an edge. I find it to be more stable. And a lighter low angle design, I have a tendency to move it and it responds. And again, this I guess could come with experience, that it is something that's actually a positive. But for me, it's a negative. I like the fact that it's nice and heavy, and I could very easily keep it on a relatively narrow edge. So, I mean,
I wonder what the actual weight difference is. I've never really noticed a weight difference. I mean, they're both big planes. They're still kind of, I mean, it has to be, right? The bevel down has to be, because you've got the big frog and everything in there. There's just more. Just
stuff right at that center point, where you're focusing your attention is just a little. I mean, it probably doesn't take a whole lot for there to be a noticeable difference. But again, for me, just not tons of experience with it, I would just gravitate toward the one that's heavier. Though in a smaller format, I like them lighter. So go figure.
Yeah. No, but I can definitely back that up. I mean, if you're going to have a big plane, you want it to have mass, just because it's easier to. Yeah. You needed to get going. You want to do its job while it gets moving.
Yeah. So. All right. Well, then I think that just about wraps it up. Now, if you like these email questions, you like us answering these email questions, you may be interested in signing up at Patreon for the $4 level or higher. You'll get access to an extra question every week. And this week, we're going to talk about general finishes in Durovar specifically, and some finishing strategies that we might employ when using it. So that'll be a good little topic. And okay, what else is there here? Oh, supporting the show. I just mentioned that. Oh. Patreon.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Do it.
Patreon.com/woodtalk if you want to help us out. You can also get a Wood Talk t-shirt at twwstore.com, or head to iTunes, find us in the store, and click on ratings and reviews and give us a little rating there. Maybe we'll read it on the show. Maybe not. You just never know. And Shannon, what? Excuse me. Whoops. Shannon, my bad. Why don't you give them the contact info and we'll get out of here.
All right. If you have comments, questions, topic suggestions, just want to tell Matt to talk more about his bandsaw mill, you can do that a couple different ways. You can leave a voicemail on Skype. Our username is Wood Talk Online. You can call us at 623-242-5180. You can write it out on our fancy contact form at woodtalkshow.com/contact, or just go to the show notes at woodtalkshow.com. Leave your comment there and say, when are you going to fire that puppy up, Matt? I got a log I need you to saw.
Saw my logs.
Saw my
say
logs.
It just like that, too.
Please do. Please. Yes. That's really it, other than the fact that we each have our own websites.
Mm-hmm. No, don't worry about those.
Kind of important.
Those are dumb.
Yeah. They're out there.
Cool.
If you don't know what they are, then I don't know, you're probably better off.
You'll catch it next time.
See me on my website, please. Just do it finally.
Finally.
Yeah. They'll get there eventually, Matt. Don't worry.
Well, I got time. I'm not going anywhere, right?
Right. Yeah. You're stuck. All
right. Right, guys?
I don't know. Still on probation as far as I'm concerned.
Nervous.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody, and we will catch you next time.
See ya.
All right. Save. Gonna have to go get some water, pull up a new file. What are we on? 3.
We're on email extra.
7F. 343, email extra. Oh, man. All right. That's good.
Good.
It's good. All right, let me get some water. Be right back. I'm back. It was right behind me.
And I'm back.
How's that for service?
Wow.
Pretty
Hey, what
good.
is that profile on the computer behind you, by the way? It looked like you had a SketchUp model running.
It is. That's the profile of the gaming arcade cabinet.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. So
are you doing it in metric, or are you actually switching it to inches?
Don't be stupid. I'm doing it in imperial. I'm actually like using the metric as a starting point and trying to, if I get 1 or 2 dimensions and then an angle, then the rest is just going to, I'm not going to have much control over it. It's going to be what it is. So that's kind of where it's going. I'm trying to start with a good square panel of an even dimension and then try to get the, angles to fit within that panel and cut it out. So it's crazy, man. I'm telling you, the way that they constructed it, instead of just like going out and getting a slot cutting bit to make a slot for this T-molding, they would rather use a slot bit, oddly enough, to create a very thin rabbet and then sandwich 2 pieces together to get a centered slot in a panel. And I'm like, my gosh, why would you do that much extra work? Like, that makes no sense whatsoever.
Much more difficult.
Yeah,
it's not buy the expensive bit, I guess.
Yeah, but they've already got a slot cutting bit. Maybe it's not narrow enough to do the job. But again, it's just one of those things. Like, Shannon, you talked about this in a very positive light. This is a negative side of it. Like, if you have people doing unconventional things that you would not necessarily consider, that can work against you too. And that's kind of what this reminds me of, is like, well, guys, there was like a much easier way to do this than what you've done.
Yeah, your comments were in my head when I saw that ring video. It's one of the reasons I grabbed it, because it was the counterpoint to what you were saying.
Totally. Yeah, sometimes it's great to see someone who doesn't have the baggage that we have of things we've learned, and the baggage of like lessons and techniques that, like, no, this has to be done this way. Well, this whole thing, for instance, this whole side, there's a whole internal structure that goes inside it. Where's the other picture? So this is the internal structure, and you have basically a slightly oversized representation of that as the arcade side. So all these internals are pretty much just held in with glue and like glue blocks. There's zero joinery, and the guy doesn't even use screws because he doesn't want to deal with screw heads and stuff on the outside. So the whole thing is just kind of held together with glue and the edges of MDF meeting faces of MDF, and it's like, and now I'm trying to balance like how much extra effort to put into this. I'm certainly not going to like dado and groove this whole thing in place, but I sure as heck may be driving some screws, and then capping them off or something like that. So, but again,
he made it out of MDF. Were you using plywood?
He made it out of MDF, and I'm kind of going back and forth with this because it's either like MDF and paint it, or go with some plywood, trim it out, and actually make it look nice. And I think Brian prefers a more elegant wood look, because when you look at these arcade cabinets, most of the time people are not making like an elegant piece of furniture that would look good in a room.
No, that's kind of what I was getting at, to see if you're going to bring the finer side of this into the project.
Yeah, I am, but I'm trying not to go too far with it, because what makes that project popular on Instructables is because it's not that difficult to make. And if I start going, well, you know what, let's, should we use a biscuit for this, mitered edge, or, I'm just trying to simplify it so that it could be glue and screws and as few miter cuts as possible.
That's a fine line that results in 20 extra hours of work.
Right. Well, of course, I mean, how about the fact that right off the bat, I'm trimming it out, with solid wood, and it's going to be a nice, decent grade plywood. So just the trimming activity alone deters some people. If they could paint it, then it's much easier. But trimming it out and making, covering all those plywood edges is a little bit of a deal. So, okay, let's do our email extra. And should we kill the live stream or just let it roll? Is anyone even watching?
I'm not.
Nobody cares about you, Matt.
Not talking about you, Matt. You dumb. Let's go with it. Who cares? So some people get it. Some people get it for free, yo. All right, here we go. Shut up. Quiet. Yeah. It's the email extra. And it's going to be a good one today. We got a question having to do with finish. And what's the person's name? All I see is the question. I don't see a person's name.
I don't know.
I like to attribute credit for good questions. Well, anyway, whoever it is, apologies, it's Shannon's fault. But maybe Shannon can make it up to you, because he's the one who this is really directed at. In Shannon's videos, he applies shellac, then general finishes, seal-a-cell, then armor seal. The project is birch, ply, walnut, and MDF. Walnut for a shop project, he's saying. I love Armor Seal, but can't use it in my basement without smoking out the whole house with fumes. I happened to be looking at General Finishes Endurovar and subsequently saw Shannon recommended it in Mark's Popular Woodworking. I hate that we have to do that extra letter in there. PWWIA interview. Shannon. So I remember Shannon did say that that's his favorite finish. So Shannon, would you use anything between the shellac and the Endurovar, some water-based equivalent to Sealacell? Would you even use shellac at all?
Well, first of all, this is from Nick. So thanks for the question, Nick.
There you go. Good job.
Second of all, you would know better than I would because I rarely watch my own videos, but I don't remember ever doing this.
I don't know what the heck I did.
I don't remember ever putting shellac underneath any of this stuff, but it's highly possible. You would probably know because you probably saw me do it. So the question is, would I use anything between shellac and the Endurovar? No. I mean, one of the nicknames of shellac is also the universal binder. It pretty much everything sticks to shellac, and shellac sticks to everything. It's often used as a seal coat, like underneath stuff, like to, contain like smoke fumes and things like that before you paint over top of it. Same thing would apply with a clear coat. So I question is, do you need to use it at all? And it comes down to sealing it. Sealacell is not really a sealer. First of all, it's a penetrating finish and not a film finish. Sealacell, as I understand it, is just kind of a little bit more of a watered down general finishes with a little less of the varnish, if I remember correctly.
Am I going to have to completely correct everything you're saying right now?
Or is it less of the oil? I don't remember. I don't remember whether it's less oil or less varnish.
I don't want to be rude.
Please do.
I'm going to let you finish.
But that's what it comes down to. I'll use shellac sometimes as like an anti-blotching tool to kind of seal the wood and prevent stuff, whatever it is, the next coat, from absorbing too much and creating some of that blotchiness. Other times I'll just use shellac because I like the finish and it's easy to apply. And multiple coats are easy because each coat burns into the next, kind of like lacquer. So that's what I'm trying to remember, when I would have top coated shellac with something other than shellac, because I like shellac so much. But the times I've used Endurovar, that's the only finish I'm using because I like it so much.
And it does have a little bit of that coloring aspect. We've talked about that before.
Yeah.
So it actually looks kind of like an oil-based finish when it's dry, more so than most water-based finishes.
A little bit of that amber hue, and it soaks in really nicely and gives you the chatoyancy and stuff that you could get from an oil finish.
Yeah. All right.
So, correct away.
Okay.
Sealacell has always been a mystery to me. I have a can of it. I used it on my tool cabinet. And that was kind of it.
So this is my, request to the world. Let's stop the madness, okay? Let's stop being stupid. Let's stop the madness. Let's get rid of Sealacell and let's call these finishes what they actually are. And I love General Finishes. I think it's a great company. The people there are great. Their products are great. But in my opinion, Sealacell is basically just another thing for you to buy. It's not really doing much for you. It is a film forming finish. It's just another type of varnish, just like Armor Seal. If you were to give it any credit for doing anything, is that it's probably got a little bit more of an ambering quality to it. The varnish layer that it leaves behind is maybe a little bit softer. Because you can always vary quantity and types of resins in these things to give them slightly different properties. So there are some different properties to it, but man, it is not different enough to bother unless you can visually see a difference, test it for yourself. Because if you can't, skip it altogether. I used to use both because I was also under the impression that Sealacell was almost more like an oil varnish blend, and that you would want to use that as your first sealer coat and then finish up with the Armor Seal as a top coat, which is a harder. It's more durable. It's actually, like I said, Sealacell is a little bit softer. The Armor Seal is a little bit harder. But if Armor Seal is an oil-based varnish, there is no reason, unless it's color, right? There is no reason to use this stuff before Armor Seal. Just go with the Armor Seal, make that your top coat, make it your first coat, and stop buying a second can of finish that's just going to go bad in 6 months because you opened it and never used it again. So if I could do anything, it would be to tell people stop buying Sealacell. Sorry, General Finishes. Love you guys, but I think
buy more Armor Seal.
Yeah, just buy the Armor Seal and be done with it. Again, test it. If you can see the color difference, fine. Go ahead and use the Sealacell. But Seal-A-Cell is a film forming finish. It will seal the surface. I mean, that's sort of what it's there to do. But you could use Seal-A-Cell as your only finish if you wanted to. Build up coats of that. But again, the Armor Seal is going to be a little bit more durable. So then, in my opinion, skip the damn Seal-A-Cell. Just go with Armor Seal and don't look back.
Yeah.
So there.
That makes sense. Well, and to his point, I mean, Armor Seal's great, but he can't use it in his basement shop without smoking out the house.
Sure.
I think EnduroVar will be a major step up for you there.
No doubt about it.
Very, very low VOC. It's water-based, so it's by its very nature, I think it's going to be low VOC.
Mm-hmm.
But, I haven't honestly, I've certainly used both substantially, but I can't say I've done a lot of side-by-side testing of it. I know other people who have. And it looks really good. EnduroVar looks really good for a water-based finish.
Yeah.
As far as adding that depth, that luster, and that little bit of coloration that you get from oil, I think it's a great alternative. It's so much easier to clean up too. Lays down nicely too. I actually like brushing it on. It's a very good finish.
Yeah. Cool. All right, I think that'll do it. And hey, Matt, you got anything to add to this? We didn't really let you talk very much. I forgot you were on the show.
Who?
Oh, that's
I'm
right.
here?
Matt's here. Jeez, you could have gone and taken a poop while we were doing this.
No, the only thing I have to say is that I'm glad I've been doing it right all these years. Thanks, Mark.
Mm-hmm. You're very welcome.
Seal-A-Cell. Never used it. Never thought it would be worth it even trying. So,
but I don't know whether you should be thanking Mark for that, because I'm pretty certain the reason I have a can of Seal-A-Cell is because of Mark. Yes, because of early wood whisperer days. I know that's how I got started on general finishes. And then when I found out that David Mark's quote tongue oil was really just Armor Seal, I kind of then said, okay, well, it's a good product. That's why I started using it. So I don't think I want to go out and bought Seal-A-Cell if it wasn't for the wood whisperer.
The problem is Shannon watched my show early on and then stopped. Like once we became friends, it was permission to stop watching it. So he hasn't paid attention to anything in the last 8 years. Yeah, that's really the problem.
It says simple varnish finish on repeat at home.
Yeah,
that's only watch it.
Exactly.
Awful.
And I do believe we should be able to blame David Marks for all of this, because honestly, it's him and his fancy tongue oil polyurethane. His tongue oil poly that he was using.
Russian rag.
Yeah. Oh man, good stuff. The good old days. All right, well, I think that's about it. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for downloading the email extra, and I guess we'll catch you on the weekend show.
Bye. See ya.
Yeah, it's David Mark's fault.
At least, I mean, I know that they never talk brands because of the, they weren't a sponsor or anything like that, but still.
Yeah.
Tongue oil finish.
Yeah, when you got a show like that, man, in front of a big audience, you got to get that stuff right. And I think the thing was, in David's situation, when they were filming that, it wasn't like there were any other woodworkers, like really, at least to my knowledge on this situation. I don't think anyone else was really vetting what he was saying. Like David was the guy, and they just had a production.
Why would you? Look at his stuff. It's like, he's the man.
You don't need to check his information. And it's not that he was wrong. It's just, I believe his explanation is that the product used to be different and that they changed the product while he was using it and he just didn't know. So it just became this sort of calling it tongue oil when it actually was just urethane, some type of varnish. So,
well, when it comes to finishing in general, it's such a misinformation spin selling industry that I don't think any woodworker can be blamed for thinking something. Seal-A-Cell, perfect example. Here I'm thinking, but see that I've always been thinking it had oil in it, and I knew that Armor Seal didn't.
But dude, look at Armor Seal's label. What's on
there?
It says oil and urethane, whatever, something or other. And tell me that isn't meant to deceive.
It is. It's oil based.
Right.
The carrier is oil.
Right.
So it's not false. It is oil and urethane.
Sure. Yep.
You can't just have urethane in there. It would be kind of hard to apply.
It's a block.
Thanks.
Basically.
Thanks for
rub it on the surface.
Yeah. Thanks for the clarification.
It's hand rubbed.
All right.
We actually should keep that in part of the show. That's good stuff there.
Too late. All right. So let's do the weekend show. Let's get it done and over with. I'm tired. Oh, I'm gonna have to announce that we're taking a couple weeks off.
Welcome to Wood Talk for woodworkers by woodworkers. Now here are three guys who put the fine in fine woodworking: Mark, Matt, and Shannon.
Dang it, Matt. You need to change the date. What's the date on Friday?
Cares? It's Friday.
No. I care. It's an organizational thing. It's the 16th.
It's the 16th of December.
Oh man.
Matt, when you
Last
make these
shopping
tabs,
weekend before Christmas.
change the number, change the date. I'm going to dock this from your Patreon money.
You had one job, Matt.
One job,
Matt.
I know. I'm supposed to do it every week too.
Sitting there with your fancy turtleneck.
You like that?
What a jerk. All right. Well, hey, it's the weekend show. We're having a good time. We're a little punch drunk. And just a quick announcement. This is going to be the last show for the year. We are actually taking a couple of weeks off to rest our voices, to let Matt finish his stupid saw that he's building.
It's pretty stupid.
Yeah. And we will be back in business as usual on January 2nd. I believe that is a Monday. So we're going to take a couple of weeks off. And hopefully you will allow us to do that without griping too much when we're sorry, but not that sorry, because it's, family, vacation, holiday, all that good stuff. It's very important to rest up, recharge your batteries. So yeah, we'll see you in 2017. But in the meantime,
focus on the other stuff we have to do.
Yeah, there's lots of other things going on.
I was gonna say, I don't know about you. I didn't take no vacation.
Man, I gotta say, I think we actually did pretty dang good, because the person who records the broadcast, I went through an entire move and got into this house, and the show was pretty much uninterrupted. That's not too bad, frankly. I mean, not to pat myself on the back, for something simple.
I have to laugh right now because I realize no one can see this. Oh, okay, it just changed. But Mark's camera was so dark and blacked out because it's focusing on the monitors behind him. It looks like one of those confession shows. All we need is the electronic,
Oh yeah, look at that.
Disguise your voice.
Oh wow.
It's like one of those images where the face is blurred out and in a darkened room. It's like he's trying to hide from us.
Let me block my screens. I've got light here I could turn on, but it's a lot of work. I got to reach behind the monitor.
You look better in silhouette, actually.
Thank you.
Just discovered that.
I look better when you can't see the detail, is what you're saying?
Oh, wow.
I would agree with you on that one. I did shave my beard, so I'm not looking as svelte as I did last week.
They're going to kick you out of Colorado.
They might. Everyone, as soon as I shaved it, right? You go around, everybody's like, oh, I'm not sure I like the beard. I'm talking about my family here. Not sure I like it. And then I shave it, and everybody's like, oh, it looks terrible. You look awful.
You look how you used to look.
Yeah,
terrible.
You look like you used to look for 40 years. All right, so let's get into our question here. This one's from Joshua Luther, and it actually kind of we'll talk about this on a sort of larger scale, more general conversation about it. We're talking about when you're buying new tools or you're buying a particular setup, and you have the option to buy cheap, which allows you to then buy more accessories and other things. Excuse me, God, this is terrible. I can't help it. It just happens, guys. I'm sorry. Or do you spend more money, buy the better thing and not be able to get those accessories, but you're really investing more long term, and you're just saying, I'm going to be patient and get those other things later. So I can't do as much right away, but at least I've got the higher quality stuff. So his question, I'm looking to get into turning by buying either a Harbor Freight 10-inch lathe for $219 or the 12-inch for $100 more. If I buy the cheaper one, I'll have money left for chucks and other accessories. Any suggestions as to which I should get? I'm looking to spend no more than $350. I already have a set of traditional tools, but no grinder to sharpen them on. So that's a factor as well. I'm leaning towards the cheaper 10-inch lathe so that I could pick up the Rikon 8-inch slow speed grinder for sharpening. I don't want to blow my whole wad on just, love that, on just the lathe, and then no effective way of sharpening the tools. So I think this is, you could probably have this discussion in different tool categories, and the answer might be a little bit different. If you're talking about the lathe, we may have a different answer than if we were talking about, a table saw, maybe. So let's address it specifically with a lathe. And I know you guys both turn more than I do. Yeah, I mean, I do it periodically, and I'm very lucky to have a great lathe.
I'm constantly turning. It's ridiculous.
So who wants to take this one first? I know, Shannon, you do the most turning here. You think you can get away with the Harbor Freight 10?
Yeah, I mean, and I think, Mark, you're actually a good example of the other end of things. You've got, and I don't know whether it was a sponsored tool or what. We don't want to get into that, but you've got a really nice lathe, and
of course it was a sponsored tool.
Yeah, so one has to ask, do you really need all of that power and the variable speed and the anti-vibration that comes with that solid hunk of steel? Whereas most of the furniture style turning, you're not really making bowls and a lot of art pieces and David Marks type stuff. A lot of the furniture style stuff ends up being spindles or smaller type things.
Yeah.
And a small lathe would be perfectly fine for you.
So whoa. Are you saying I don't deserve the lathe that I have?
I'm saying it all. Don't put words into my mouth.
Look, sometimes you get the urge to do the whole like Olympic style pommel horse action, and that's what I do it on. So I need it to be
really good idea.
I need it to be sturdy.
Study under David Mark. It's important to do various gymnastic things on your workbenches. And
that's right. That's where I learned it from. Well, you know what? You bring up an excellent point, and I'll be the first to admit that the size, the swing, the heft of that particular tool is lost on me. I don't, and I do reserve the right to one day go down that rabbit hole and start to get into that stuff, and I'll have what I need to do it. But I had a good opportunity to get a really nice lathe and just have it there. It's not like it's going to go bad sitting there for a few years, but when I do use it, I've got a very powerful system that I can take advantage of. But you're absolutely right. Everything that I turn for furniture could totally be done with a mini style lathe. I don't really need the capacity and the power.
And I don't think you'll ever regret having that smaller lathe. It's always will find a purpose in your shop. Even if you do go down the turning rabbit hole and start doing really big stuff, it's always nice. It's kind of like the reason a lot of people have multiple bandsaws. You've got a resaw bandsaw and a smaller one that you keep set up for turning.
And a sawmill bandsaw.
That's right. Yeah, that's an extra large.
One of those. There's log work, there's resawing, and then there's little reindeer.
Right.
And I mean, certainly you're further down the road there. You got to the point where you're buying luxury items to support your habit, basically, is what it comes down to. But I think when it comes to turning, I've never turned on a Harbor Freight lathe, but $219 as compared to the Jet lathe that I bought, which I don't, if it was more, it was maybe $100 more. That lathe has lasted me a decade now. And I do not regret buying it. So I don't know. I think you'll be all right. I do think you'll be missing a lot of stuff. Like, you've got to have a sharpening system. If you're going to spend all your money and then you can't afford a sharpening system, you're not going to be very good for very long.
Right.
Because those traditional tools, even the carbide tools, they're going to go dull on you, and your turning experience is going to be dramatically negative from that point on. I don't care how good your technique is, how good your lathe is. If the tool is dull, it's going to suck. So, that at least you got to have the money to do that. I don't know about the chucks and stuff like that right off the bat. I guess it really depends on what you want to turn. If you're definitely getting into to turn bowls, then yeah, you might want a chuck. And speaking for somebody that used a cheapo chuck for years, and then I used a really nice chuck, I didn't really know what I was missing. I just thought that it was supposed to be somewhat taking my life into my hands with a cheaper chuck. It's supposed to be an element of risk that it might come loose.
That's all part of the fun.
A decent chuck, I was like, oh wow, that's really rock solid. Like, holy crap.
Yeah.
I've really didn't know what I was missing. So there is something to be said about it getting a really nice chuck. But I think the cool thing about wood turning in general is there's a lot of manufacturers, and there is cheapo, high end, and there is a middle ground as well. I don't think you have to spend $500-$600 on a chuck. You can get a decent middle of the road chuck as well.
Yeah.
Another thing to look out for, there's a lot of deals where the chuck comes included with the lathe. Keep an eye out for those.
Yeah.
Because that tends to be a pretty cheap chuck too.
So outside of the realm of the lathe, I think this answer could change. Matt, would you take the same approach that Shannon just did if we were talking about a table saw? And you're possibly you have nothing, so you're looking to maybe get a miter gauge, some kind of other accessory for it. Would you take that same path?
I guess it depends again on what you're doing. With a table saw, at least there aren't a whole lot of accessories that you have to buy that you can make yourself, or I'm thinking crosscut sled. You could go buy your fancy $300 miter gauge. You can just build yourself a crosscut sled. And do everything you could do on a miter gauge with that sled in theory, but you don't have to spend the money on the miter gauge. I don't know. It's a really hard question to answer because it's gonna be different for everybody, and depending on the tools. Specifically, if we go back to the lathe things, I don't know anything about either of these lathes. I don't know if they're good at all. But if it's worth spending $100 more on the 12-inch lathe because the 10-inch lathe is a piece of junk, I don't.
Right.
Presumably it's not, but
because that could be the problem too, because there is a bottom like quality level where it's like, no, this is not worth it. It's going to be more frustration than it's worth.
Exactly.
But I guess you just don't know until you get some hands-on time with it. But I think with a lathe, maybe I'm wrong, I would feel like a lathe is more likely, just because of the sort of simplistic nature of what it does and what it has to do, that it's more likely to be okay on a cheaper variety.
Yeah.
And also depends
your
on the
centers
lathe
could be
turn.
off, I suppose, but
Or it might be too light, so you're getting a little bit of chatter and vibration, maybe.
With those ones, you're probably going to want to bolt them down anyway.
Yeah.
The bench top.
But, with a table saw, that will quickly become the anchor of your shop. And, you're going to, especially if that's all you have, you're going to be using it a lot. And I do think that there's some merit to, you're not going to need a sharpening system. Worst comes to worst, you buy a new blade. Otherwise, you send it back. If you bought a really nice blade, I guess that is something, the upgrade of the blade. We always hear that. First thing you do is throw out the factory blade and buy a new blade. But so I suppose that is one upgrade. But I can't really think of a whole bunch of accessories right off the bat that I would really need. Matt brought it up. You can make a crosscut sled. Do you need that super fancy aftermarket miter gauge right away? I don't think so.
Yes.
I don't know.
Of course. Or just use the stock one and get a miter set.
Yeah,
And
just keep the stock one and buy General Finish's seal cell.
That's right. That's what you should do. Everybody knows. All right. So, hey, real quick, this might be fun to do. So I am watching the chat room. People don't know it. And let's see. There was actually a question. Yeah, so I'll ask a question from someone here in the chat room. So Rodrigo Meza wants to know from Matt, what do you expect will be the effect of this winter on your mill? Are you worried about rust?
People are really concerned about metal rusting for some reason, and my ability to paint stuff as quickly as possible. I'm not really too worried about it. Winter is kind of an interesting time where the precipitation is frozen. So unless I let it sit on the steel and let it melt and turn to water, it's not going to have a whole lot of effect on the rusting of the steel. So like this weekend, we got 6 inches of snow. I just went out there with the leaf blower and blew all the snow off of it. So now it's just cold metal sitting out there.
Mm-hmm.
But until like the spring, when it actually starts raining again, it's not going to be that big of a concern. So I do have time to still get the covers made for it and the little roof on top of it and all that stuff. But I don't worry about it.
I thought you did something. I thought you did some sort of like fancy bond to the metal type.
I have that on the track and the carriage frame. I didn't get the beam painted, or as you'll see, the guards painted. But the guards, I can take them off and paint them in the shop because they're smaller.
Well, I can get you a real good deal on the undercoating.
Ooh.
Nice. Hey, just FYI, if you're listening, we actually do record the show live every Monday. I don't know, usually 4 p.m. Eastern? Typically around that time. So if you do want to catch it live on YouTube, it's actually youtube.com/woodtalk/live. We should probably mention that once in a while. So a very small crowd, just given the time and the fact that we don't promote it. But if you're interested, we do this live.
Are there more questions?
There is one here. See, things that people aren't used to asking questions and having them answered, so it doesn't happen. But
well, I guess the second ago, like, hey, I wonder if anyone's watching this because I'm not paying attention at all.
Yeah. So Kevin Hoppenwath says, hey guys, trying to make a sacrificial fence. What type of wood should I use? Plywood or what?
Sacrificial wood.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any wood you don't really care about. There you go.
Yeah, that should be our show title, Virgin Wood.
Honestly, any sheet good is good in my opinion because it's a sacrificial fence, which means you need it to be flat. So, and you're going to wind up clamping it or bolting it to your fence anyway. So as long as it is fairly consistent thickness, you'll be able to conform it to the fence. But I think plywood or MDF or something like that is a much better material than picking up a piece of solid wood, which you'd probably want to mill first. It seems a waste to use it for that. So I would go with any kind of scrap sheet good that you might have a proper dimension. Get that thing on the fence and you'll be good to go. I think that's really about it. Someone is asking.
Ebony. Definitely ebony.
Yes, please. A giant piece of ebony. And make sure you collect all the dust. Add a little CA glue, and you got another ebony stick right there.
You're right.
Love it.
Together.
Yeah, those are good for resale.
But you have to create an ebony mold. You have to create a mold to make your ebony, and that should be used something just as rare. Brazilian rosewood mold to create your ebony.
Right.
Your ebony fiberboard, essentially.
There, you'd get no complaints about that. That's for sure.
Not at all.
Okay, well, let's close this one off. Thanks for listening, everybody. And again, we're going to be gone for a couple of weeks. So hope you have a wonderful holiday, Christmas, whatever you celebrate. And we will see you on January 2nd. And Shannon, you want to give them that contact info? We'll get out of here.
Merry New Year. Let's see. If you have comments, questions, or topic suggestions, you can show up live and ask them.
Yeah, do that.
Hey, yo.
Or if you're not cool enough to have nothing to do in the middle of a Monday afternoon, you can leave us a voicemail on Skype. You can find us there at Wood Talk. No, sorry. I blew it.
Wood Talk Online.
Wood Talk Online. What's the name of the show? I don't know.
Not Wood Talk Online anymore.
You can call us. It's probably better to call us. 623-242-5180. Go to woodtalkshow.com/contact and fill out the little form, or go to our website at woodtalkshow.com and leave a comment in the show notes. And
is all good, baby. So this is it.
For supporting us.
Yeah, this is it, guys. Last show for 2016. It's been an interesting year. A lot of changes this year. Right?
Yep.
Is that a good interesting or a bad interesting?
Let's just say it's been a lot more work. It's been rewarding, but we most certainly have created a lot more work for ourselves. And you know what? I got to say, I was very apprehensive about the Patreon thing to begin with. It was something that I hesitated. We got into it late because of my sort of personal apprehensions about it. But I think it opened up some doors for us, allowed us, again, a lot of work, but it allowed us to do some things that we weren't able to do before, and gives a little structure to things and goals and stuff like that. So I think it's really cool, and I want to thank everybody who's jumped on board to help us out with that. And I really think moving forward in 2017, I just see more good things coming out of that, And for a show as old as this one, it's kind of cool to be able to still get that kind of support and people to essentially speak with their wallet to let us know, hey, we like this enough. We want to see you guys keep doing it. And I think, I don't know, it's I don't want to be shallow about it because it's not about the money per se, but when you really know someone cares, when a stranger pulls out money to give you a couple bucks to say, yes, please keep doing this. And it just means a lot to us. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
That.
Daniel Stark says, keep the Instagram stories coming. You guys do Instagram stories? I know Matt does.
I do, yeah.
I keep forgetting the features there. I usually have just uploaded something to Instagram going, I should have done that as a story. Yeah, mm-hmm. I'm a slow learner.
I'm going to do one right now. How about that? Ready? So everyone can watch this.
I'm ready.
We're doing Wood Talk, and I'm doing an Instagram story. Look, he has a new Apple iPhone to announce. There we go.
Nice.
That's my new story. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone, and we will see you next year.
Bye. Merry New Year.
Bye.
Hopefully that doesn't confuse anyone.
I can't believe I've been doing this for a year already.
Have you?
Yes.
Oh, it feels like 5.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it's been a year now. That's it. I want to come back.
Yeah, you made it past the threshold. I guess we're stuck with you now.
I realize that by this time next year, well, I guess we'll still be about 60 shows off, but we'll be knocking on the number 500 show.
Oh, jeez.
If you imagine 2 a week for 52 weeks or 50 weeks, we'll be at 442 by next year.
Damn.
So I guess that's still a long way off, but still.
You know what would have been awesome? I think we should have done a live, on the air job review for Matt. Like when you're in a new job and
it was so funny.
6 months later you get your review and you find out whether or not you're going to get your 3% raise.
Hey. What are your goals for 2000? Well, I'll tell you what. Next Tuesday I am doing that at my job.
Oh, at your real job.
Yeah, marketing plan.
Oh man, maybe if we could and stuff. If we could chisel out some time, we could do a bonus show right after Christmas, and just have Matt's yearly review. That would be great. I'd have to write some good stuff for that though. What do you think was your biggest accomplishment this year, Matt?
Yeah, in other words, get that.
I have a 75%. I have a 75% success rate on creating the tabs for the show. That's pretty good, right?
75% success rate. That's awesome.
And I have a 30% success rate at changing the date within those tabs.
Wow, when you put it that way.
Yeah.
That's not good.
A winner.
Yeah, Vanderlist exceeded those numbers. Jeez.
Hey, I know you can't compare me to him. All right, we're different people.
Yeah, you are. I talked to Matt this past week. I was telling him about how he's lucky he got out when he did. He's like, so can we restart the review show? I was like, not on your life, dude. Oh, good stuff. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Guess we're done with the show now. Guess I have to do some editing. Show title for the first show?
Mark drops a hot one.
There you go. Hey, I wanted to ask you guys, do you think we should go back to topical titles for the show? Like, I like doing the funny titles, but they are so not helpful, even remotely. And I listen to, like HT Guys is a good example for home theater stuff. And their shows always have in the title, at least one or two of the things that they talk about on the show. And obviously that's a much better service for the listener, but sometimes the titles we have are kind of stupid and funny. So what's your opinion? Do you think we should stick with goofy titles, or do you think we should go, and maybe people in the chat room, if you're listening, let us know real quick survey.
The immediate problem.
Yeah, we're still live.
What do you choose? Because
we would just use
at least 3 topics.
The lead off topics, and I don't care about title length. It doesn't. I mean, who cares? What's the difference? Right. So where we do the summary of what we're talking about, and we lead off with that will go into, or at least an abbreviated version of that will go into the actual title of the show. But it's boring, but it's totally informative. Everyone's talking about your probationary period right now, Matt.
Oh God.
I mean, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing for the weekend show right now. We're staying topical on that. So
yeah.
I mean,
I just think that's more helpful, but just doesn't fit behind the sort of entertaining vibe.
Well, it would certainly get the SEO plugin off my back.
Yeah.
Time I do these show notes. It's like flashing up red lights. Your title has nothing to do with the show.
This sucks. Do it over.
From an SEO best practice, yes, that makes much more sense. But
Al Whelan says, yes, topical with a twist. But here's the thing. If you go topical, there's no room for a twist. Like we either say the topics or we don't.
Yeah, you start getting too long and the URL gets rejected by the browsers because it's too many characters.
Yeah. Kevin says, funny topics are funny, but not so useful. And therein lies the problem.
Yep.
And Daniel's neutral. I got to tell you guys in the chat room, you're not helpful at all.
Yeah, thanks for nothing, chat room.
You're not helping us right now.
You show up and add nothing to the conversation.
Come on, guys. I'm counting on you. Let your voice be heard. The Etherean says, I don't mind funny topics because I'm going to listen to the whole thing anyway.
Oh, there you go.
And then Kevin says, but the Wood Talk page does a good job of clarifying what's on the podcast. Might as well keep the funny. All right. Oh, here comes some more. Yes. I think the review of Matt would make a great Patreon perk. Oh, good idea, Carl.
If we get to $5,000 by...
Yeah, we'll make it a goal. If we reach 5,000 by Christmas, you got it.
we will publicly do a job review.
Yeah.
Nice.
I guess like on the podcast app, like on my phone, like the subheading has all the descriptions in it.
Yeah. Well, that is the one thing in the notes itself. The first line of our notes is that on today's show.
Sentence. Yeah.
So that's what gets picked up in the metadata. So,
and I use that for the excerpt as well. So depending on how they're looking at it, they're going to see that sentence.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Cool.
Part of the brand, to quote Matt, of the show is the goofy title. In some respects, and it becomes part of the game to find out where the title came from by listening to the show. Except lately, we've been kind of calling it out.
Yeah. What is
That's the show title?
There it is. What is the show title? Now that we're talking about it, I'm going to kill the broadcast. Thanks for listening, everybody.